State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
A jury in Kenosha, Wisconsin has determined that Kyle Rittenhouse is not guilty. For the past few weeks, the 18-year-old has been on trial for various charges, including gun possession and homicide, after he shot 3 men during riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schroeder announced that Rittenhouse is not guilty on all charges, a victory for those who believe that Rittenhouse was simply acting in self-defense. Before the jury's decision, Judge Schroeder dismissed 2 of the charges brought by prosecutors against Rittenhouse. One had alleged that he failed to comply with an emergency curfew, but the judge ruled that prosecutors presented insufficient evidence that a curfew was being enforced the night of the shooting. He also dismissed misdemeanor gun charges after instructing prosecutors that their accusation was not in line with Wisconsin law. On August 25, 2020, Kyle Rittenhouse gained national media attention after he entered Kenosha, Wisconsin, where his father lived, to, in his words, offer medical care and protect a car lot from rioters. Before the night was over, Kyle had killed 2 protesters with his AR-15 and injured a 3rd. In the days that followed, the media and many politicians were quick to label the incident a mass shooting at the hands of a white supremacist. Others said he was simply standing his ground and acting in self-defense against violent men attempting to hurt him. The one person, though, who was silent on the matter was Rittenhouse himself. But this month, we finally got to hear Kyle's side of the story in court, and it captivated the country. Here are the biggest moments from the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. The drama began before either side even presented their opening arguments. On November 3rd, a juror was dismissed for making a joke about the shooting of Jacob Blake. He's the African-American man who was shot by police after reaching for a knife during a struggle outside of the home of a woman he'd sexually assaulted. According to prosecutor Thomas Binger, it was something along the lines of, quote, "Why did the Kenosha police shoot Jacob Blake 7 times? Because they ran out of bullets." The joke was made to one of the police officers responsible for protecting the jury, and that officer promptly reported it. As the trial opened, jurors watched never-before-seen FBI infrared footage of Rittenhouse in Kenosha. The video shows him running down a sidewalk before Joseph Rosenbaum approached him from between a cluster of cars, which the defense called a, quote, hiding spot. After a brief exchange between the two, Rittenhouse ran down the sidewalk and Rosenbaum began to chase him. On-the-ground videos showed Rittenhouse shouting, quote, "Friendly, friendly, friendly," which apparently did not deter Rosenbaum, who could be seen on video appearing to lunge for Kyle's weapon. It was at this point that Rittenhouse shot and killed him. The next day, Daily Caller reporter Richard McGinnis gave 3 hours of testimony. He'd been on the ground throughout the riots and was just feet away from the first shooting, recording video of the aftermath. He even used his own shirt to try and stop Rosenbaum's bleeding. During the testimony, Assistant District Attorney Binger suggested that McGinnis was adding his own interpretation to what happened. But McGinnis soon set the record straight in a moment that quickly went viral.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said "F you," and then he reached for the weapon.
Another witness, Ryan Balch, an Army veteran who, like Rittenhouse, was reportedly in Kenosha to help community members, testified that Joseph Rosenbaum had repeatedly threatened Kyle throughout the evening, saying he'd kill them if they were caught alone. In one key moment, Balch also told Binger that Rittenhouse was close enough to overhear the threatening comments, meaning he was aware that Rosenbaum meant to do him harm.
"If I catch any of you guys alone tonight, I'm gonna kill you."
And he said that to you?
Correct.
Did he say that to the defendant as well?
The defendant was there, so yes.
On November 8th, it appeared that the trial was beginning to turn in favor of the defense. It was on this day that Gage Grosskreutz, who Rittenhouse had shot in the arm, admitted during cross-examination that Kyle did not fire at him until after he aimed his own gun at Rittenhouse.
"It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?"
Correct.
At this point, prosecution lawyer James Krause was seen face-palming in disbelief. One of the central claims of the prosecution, that Rittenhouse went on an uncontrolled killing spree, was directly challenged by the very witness who the prosecutors brought forward themselves. This testimony ended up providing even more support for a self-defense argument than intentional murder. The prosecution's narrative appeared to dissolve further as a representative of the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner testified. Douglas Kelly is the forensic pathologist who conducted autopsies of Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber. He testified that Rosenbaum was touching, or at least very close to the barrel of Rittenhouse's AR-15, as shown by the residual gunpowder soot found on his hand. Though Kelly said that Rosenbaum could have been swatting the weapon away, he did confirm to defense lawyer Mark Richards that the bullet could also have been fired while Rosenbaum's hand was over the barrel. The defense took this as confirmation of McGinnis' testimony that Rosenbaum was lunging to grab the weapon that Kyle was holding. The prosecution also suffered an apparent blow when amateur photographer Nathan DeBruin testified that the attorneys for the prosecution had urged him to change his statement to police. Through a bizarre sleight of hand, Binger had apparently pressured him into writing that he could identify key witness Joshua Zeminski when he actually could not.
And then I was asked if I would like to add anything to the police statement, and I said I would not. Mr. Binger pulled out a cell phone and showed me a video and also a photo and asked me if I knew who a gentleman was in that photo, and I said I did not. He said, "This is Joshua Zeminski." He put the phone down, he picked the phone back up and says, "Who is this?" And I confusedly said, like, "Joshua Zeminski," and he's like, "Would you like to add that to your statement?" And I just felt I didn't want to change my statement.
On November 10th, Rittenhouse finally took the stand in his own defense. Within minutes, Kyle broke down sobbing while recounting Rosenbaum's multiple threats to kill him. He described feeling trapped by Rosenbaum and Zeminski, and it was at this point a 10-minute recess was called. Later, in an unexpected moment, Rittenhouse's defense team said that the teenager is in therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Have you ever been treated for a mental or emotional disorder?
Was, I believe, because he's in therapy. I don't think he has a mental illness or anything.
Okay.
As a result of this incident,
okay,
he has PTSD.
Okay.
During Binger's tense questioning of Rittenhouse, he repeatedly tried to extract an admission that he had intended to kill everyone he shot that night. Rittenhouse repeatedly affirmed that he only did what was necessary to defend himself. During the prosecution's closing arguments, Binger shocked many when he picked up the AR-15 for demonstration and aimed it around the room. He appeared to violate several basic principles of gun safety, as his finger was not only on the trigger, but the barrel also seemed to be pointed at multiple people. Throughout the trial, Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schroeder also gained attention for his handling of the proceedings. Before the trial began, he decided that the people shot by Rittenhouse could not be called victims. Instead, they could be referred to as arsonists, looters, or rioters if their involvement in those activities was proven. He also cited the Apostle Paul's rights as a Roman citizen, as described in the Bible, to explain Americans' right to face their accusers. At one point, his phone went off and played the ringtone "God Bless the USA" by Lee Greenwood.
The actions that I had talked about.
Leading some progressives online to call for a mistrial, arguing that the tune is, quote, Trump's theme song.
That and his phone going off with like the song that gets played at Trump rallies. But we won't go into that too deeply, Paul.
A biased, racist judge with his Trump rally cell phone that is trying to get Rittenhouse a walk.
Schroeder also gained attention after he yelled at Binger during his questioning of Rittenhouse. After Binger pushed Rittenhouse on why he remained silent following his arrest last year, Schroeder ordered the jury out of the courtroom before shouting at him for violating, quote, basic law, reminding him that someone's silence on a case cannot be used against them in court.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that.
That was before the defense
testimony. Don't get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that.
The Rittenhouse trial has been extremely polarizing, particularly with celebrities and media figures. After Kyle broke down into tears on the stand, NBA star LeBron James tweeted that the teenager must have ate some lemon heads before walking into court, along with multiple laughing emojis. CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin called Rittenhouse an idiot and said that the, quote, good news is that he's not on trial for being an idiot, but for homicide. On November 11th, CBS erroneously tweeted that Rittenhouse had, quote, murdered two men at a Black Lives Matter protest. They later deleted that post. A tweet from President Joe Biden led the judge to instruct the jury not to pay attention to anyone else's opinion on the case, including the current or former president. In a 2020 tweet, President Biden himself suggested that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. The Kyle Rittenhouse case was a fuse that lit the powder keg of Americans' frustration with incessant race rioting and destruction. To many, Rittenhouse represented a public fed up with endless waves of violence in their communities. To others, he represented an angry white America that couldn't stomach the notion of racial equality. And despite the arrival of a verdict, strong viewpoints surrounding Kyle Rittenhouse are likely to fester for decades. For more coverage of the fallout on the case, head to dailywire.com. I'm Cabot Phillips with the Daily Wire. Thanks for watching.